There's a new guard coming in Kansas City. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. I'm your host, Calvin Timms, and I have a fun video here today for you. We're going to be breaking down the fantasy outlook for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024 and beyond. But before I get into that, if you're new to the channel, thank you guys so much for checking this video out. If you can, please subscribe to the channel so you hear all of our content whenever it comes out. And if you can like the video, leave a comment down below. It just helps us out with getting into the algorithm and everything like that. And before we get into the video, man, it has been a week. I do apologize for the lack of content last week. Last Wednesday, I was like really sick. And then Thursday, my internet got cut by a landscaper. They weren't able to fix it until about an hour and a half ago, a couple hours ago here on Sunday. I'm recording this a little bit early, but in the meantime, I actually broke my toe. So it's been a wild week, man. I'm struggling through that. Friday night, I broke my toe and it is purple like a grape. It is absolutely insane. So yeah, it's been a wild week, but nevertheless, I'm back and I'm going to be pumping out the content for you guys. Dale and I are going to be putting out a video on Wednesday, and then Friday, again, we're going to be doing a live Superflex mock draft. Maybe Superflex, maybe one quarterback. We'll talk about it. We'll figure out the details, but we're going to be doing a startup draft on Friday live. So if you guys want to check that out, it'll be around 9:30 on Friday night. Check our Twitter at TDC_Calvin at FF After Dark, and we will post it beforehand. So make sure if you guys are bored and you want to check out a mock draft, go check out that live. We'll take your questions and have a good time there. So thank you guys again for joining me on this video, and I'm excited to get into the Kansas City Chiefs for 2024. Now we're going to start at the quarterback position, and there's really not much to talk about here. Patrick Mahomes is a superstar. He's probably arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. Down year last year, finishes the quarterback number 8, but still valued as the quarterback number 2 according to Keep Trade Cut and some of these other ranking websites. And it's fair, man. I don't know how you can ever go away from Patrick Mahomes, and I get it. Maybe if last year was the blueprint on how they're going to win with their defense and everything, but I think all the moves that they made in the offseason kind of say that they're not wanting to do that. You know, they trade up for Xavier Worthy in the actual NFL draft. They go and sign Hollywood Brown to a cheap deal, who is a good former first-round pick. He's still a good player. They still have Rashee Rice, who developed into a very good player last year. I think he was a second-round pick last year, second-round pick, Rashee Rice. You know, they still have Isaiah Pacheco. They re-signed Travis Kelce to a long-term extension. I don't know how long they're actually going to have him, but they paid him money so that he's happy. Everything that they say is that they want to make this offense that they had last year just a little bit better and get Patrick Mahomes back on the horse and, you know, closer to 5,000 yards versus 4,000, which he had last year. The dude is like the safest quarterback in fantasy football, though. So, yeah, there's really you're never going to be able to get Patrick Mahomes for cheap right now. You're never going to be able to sell him high and not be missing out because of what he's able to do for your roster. In one quarterback, Superflex, doesn't matter. He's only 28 years old. He's not even 30 yet. It is insane. They have him under contract for, I think, another 5 or 6 years. So, yeah, dude's not going anywhere anytime soon. Really not much to talk about with him. So, we're going to jump over to the running back position and Isaiah Pacheco. Now, Isaiah Pacheco, for me, is one of the hardest fantasy assets to value right now. And I don't know if you guys out there feel the same way, but Isaiah Pacheco is such a weird player because you look at the last couple of years, you know, he's got 2 years of experience in the NFL. I think he was an undrafted free agent. I can't remember where he was drafted. He was either a 7th round pick or undrafted. But he was a very, very late pick regardless by the Kansas City Chiefs. They have him under contract for this year and next year, and then he'll be, I think next year might actually be exclusive rights free agent, which means you have to give up a draft pick for him and they have first right to match or whatever, however that works. But Isaiah Pacheco, they basically have him for 2 more seasons. And as a rookie, comes in, gets a lot of usage towards the end of that season, finishes as the running back number 37 as a rookie. Not bad. At the time, there were still the hopes that Clyde would be the guy. It didn't pan out and everything like that. Last year, finished as the running back number 15 in 14 games played. Did have a little bit of a bump. They obviously pulled him in week number 18, but kind of hurt you at the beginning of the fantasy playoffs. Week 14 and 15, he did miss those games as well, but was very good when he came back, scored 11 points and then 30 in the most people's playoffs championship, if you were still in it by then. Very hit or miss player. He started the season a little bit slow, picked it up at certain points throughout the season. It's all whether or not he got the touchdowns or not were his bigger spike weeks, but the nice thing that you saw last year was his usage in the receiving game. He had 49 targets, 44 catches, not a lot of yards. He wasn't amazing after the catch, but if you look at what they've done this year, they brought in Louis Rees-Zammit, who is a former rugby player, so he might have decent hands, and maybe they're going to try and use him in that role, but they still have Clyde, they have Deneric Prince, they have Keontae Ingram. Like, they really don't have a pass-catching running back, so I think that they're going to trust Isaiah Pacheco with that role in this offense this year. 205 rushing attempts for 935 yards. I don't see that spiking too much higher. If he plays a full 17, maybe it's going to get a little bit higher, but, he's valued roughly where he is probably going to project to finish, which is running back number 12. Again, you go to all these ranking websites, and he's kind of the consensus running back number 12 right now. And I get it. I really do. But here's the downsides with Isaiah Pacheco. He's already 25. Season hasn't started yet, and he's already 25. He's 25.3, so he just turned 25 a couple months ago. He'll play most of the season at 25. I think if they get to the Super Bowl, maybe he'll be 26, right around there. Maybe it's right after the Super Bowl. I don't really know his birthday without looking it up. But he'll be 26 after this year. They've got him for one more year. So when he finally becomes a free agent for his second contract, he'll be 27 years old. Do you really want to invest in a 27-year-old Isaiah Pacheco who is a good player, but there's a reason why he was such a late round pick? And you can say, oh, well, these teams miss all the time. And I get it. But his running style is very different, to say the least. And it's not to say that it's not efficient, but it's just not the best running style. And I don't think he's going to be someone that can go anywhere else and be as successful as he has been with Kansas City. So you're basically getting Isaiah Pacheco for this year and next year. Maybe that's fine. And for running backs to have a top 12 guy, for 2 seasons, maybe it's worth it. But you look at his trade value, and he's estimated as the 109 to 110. And that's like basically saying you're going to take him or Brian Thomas Jr. And for me, or Jonathan Brooks or Trey Benson. And for me, I'd rather have the longevity on those players versus the guaranteed kind of floor of Isaiah Pacheco. And don't get me wrong, Isaiah Pacheco has weak winning ability in there as well. But I don't know, man. For me, it just feels kind of bad. You could also get his teammate, Xavier Worthy, roughly right around the 109 to 110. And we're going to talk about him here in just a little bit. But I think at that point, I'm just taking the rookie in Trey Benson or Jonathan Brooks and just having that longevity and the potential for a longer contract after this first one. Because, if for example, the Kansas City Chiefs don't re-sign Isaiah Pacheco, is the market really going to be there for him that he's going to be able to go to any team he chooses as a free agent? I don't see it. And then there's always the possibility next year that the Chiefs draft somebody pretty highly, given the quality running back class that 2025 is going to be. So I don't know. I'm a little iffy on it, and I get the value. I think I'd rather cash out on Isaiah Pacheco personally, but I do not blame anybody for looking at Isaiah Pacheco and saying, I have a surefire stud here that I can plug into my lineup every single week, and I can be just fine. And I get that. I totally do. Given the running back injuries and how much the turnover is at the position. I understand that completely. So I'm kind of fence sitting on this one, but I understand it. I think I would probably take the pick over the player. But if you took the player, like, you could sell me on taking Isaiah Pacheco for that value. So I think it's fair, but I would probably be trying to cash out before things went south on Isaiah Pacheco. All right, now let's go over to the tight end position. Travis Kelce, I'm going to talk about him because I want to finish on the receivers. There's a 3-pack of receivers here that were in the thumbnail, and I think that they're the most interesting piece of the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Now, obviously, they signed Travis Kelce to a multi-year contract. I don't know how much of this is going to actually matter. Travis Kelce had his first down year, I guess, for the last couple of years. He finished as the tight end number 3 in 15 games played. Some of the other big names did miss some time, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, for example, but last year was a little bit of a down year for Travis Kelce, and he is getting older, and this is why I wanted to talk about him really quickly and why I titled the video The New Guard in KC. Last year, 121 targets, not as much as we would have thought for him. Going into last year, they really didn't have a receiving threat, and I think most of the defenses that they went up against realized that as well, which is why they tried to add so many pieces in the free agency this year. I think that Travis Kelce got doubled quite a bit. And again, he is a little bit older, so he has lost a little bit of a step. You could see that down the stretch last year. Then there was the whole Taylor Swift thing. And whatever your opinion is on that, like, I do think that as a guy who's married with multiple kids and everything, like, once you start getting that into your mind a little bit, it does suck away some of your drive and your will to give everything week in and week out until you get to the playoffs, right? There's a lot of meaningless games for the Kansas City Chiefs because they're guaranteed to go to the playoffs pretty much every single year with Patrick Mahomes. So you could see a little bit of his effort kind of dwindling towards the end of the season just to be picked back up again in the playoffs. And obviously they won the Super Bowl. So Travis Kelce, I think he's a fine player. Again, he's 34 years old right now. He'll be 35 early in the season. And are you really going to have him for multiple seasons left? I doubt it. I think if they make a good run this year, if they win the Super Bowl, he's for sure going to retire. There's all these rumors that he was going to retire last year. His brother just retired as well. They do the podcast together and everything like that. But there was rumors that Travis Kelce was going to retire after last Super Bowl. If they hadn't won, he was 100% gone. He's still dating Taylor Swift. They're doing the tours and all that stuff. And I just think that his attention is very much split to outside of this world. I think that contract extension was more to just give him a massive payday to make him happy and bring him back for one more year before they have to, really worry about that position in the future. They did draft my boy Jared Wiley in the draft as well, who I quite like for the tight end position. And I think he's a name that people are starting to pick up on a little bit, but that dude was crazy athletic and crazy productive at where was he from? It's gonna bug me. Same school as Quentin Johnson. What is it? Let me pull him up here. TCU. Yep. So, or was that where Quentin Johnson? I think that's where Quentin Johnson was. Don't quote me on that, but my colleges I'm not the most well versed on, so you guys can let me know in the comments down below how stupid I am for messing up his school. But regardless, Travis Kelce, he's still going to be a valuable player. Interestingly enough, he has fallen down the tight end rankings quite a bit. For many years, he was the number 1 guy. He's currently ranked as the tight end number 7, going behind Pitts, Andrews, Hawkinson. George Kittle is right around that range as well. But there's a lot of guys that are going ahead of him that I think are unproven at this point, but I do understand it because of the longevity. So 1-year rental with Travis Kelce could be worth it. He's valued again right around that 109 to 110. And that's where, again, if you're a contender and you're going to be going, this is an in-season trade. If you need a tight end really badly for your playoff championship, go and get Travis Kelce in like week 10, week 11. Make sure that he's still healthy, everything like that. And then go give up that first round, that future first for a potential league winner, right? But yeah, that's a first round pick for Travis Kelce feels really bad right now, given the age and the potential longevity on him. So that's my 2 cents on him. Now let's finish off with the receivers here. And again, this is the most interesting thing for me. And I don't get it at all. Like, I don't understand the values, and maybe I'm an idiot, but I just do not get it whatsoever. So currently, you have Xavier Worthy, the first round pick that they drafted, 21.2 years old. They have Hollywood Brown that they signed to a 1-year contract, 27 years old. And then they have Rashee Rice, who may or may not be getting a suspension. Nobody really knows what the NFL is going to do there. 24 years old as well. Who knows what's going to happen there from SMU. Now, obviously, Hollywood Brown was the former first-round pick by the Ravens a couple years ago. Gets traded to the Arizona Cardinals and is okay. He's mediocre over there. Small guy, 5'9", 180 pounds, but he makes Xavier Worthy makes him look like a giant because he's 5'11", so he's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, but 165 on Xavier Worthy. And this is the biggest concern for me that I feel like not enough people are talking about with Xavier Worthy. And I think people are overlooking this just a little bit much. And I get it. Devonta Smith is a stud as a slender man, right? And that's what Xavier Worthy is trying to be. He's trying to be a slender man 2.0. Difference is Xavier Worthy in Texas showed a little bit less of a route tree than Devonta Smith had. Devonta Smith is I don't like the weight aspect of Devonta Smith. I don't think there's anything stopping him from beefing up to like 180, 190 and him still being a superstar at the NFL level. That's just him in his own mind getting it a little twisted that he thinks he can't do that. He can't be the same player just beefed up and a little bit stronger. Xavier Worthy was a deep threat at Texas, and that's where Adonai Mitchell was a little bit more of the all-around player there. And I think that people are looking at it and saying, well, he's really fast, which is true. He set the 40 combine, the combine 40 record, and very good player. I think that there's some potential there, but I don't see him being the fantasy superstar that everyone kind of thinks he will be. So this is why I found it crazy, right? Currently ranked as the wide receiver number 24. Hollywood Brown is ranked as the wide receiver number 46, and Rashee Rice is ranked as the wide receiver number 36. Now, I don't know how much of Rashee Rice is just because of the potential suspension stuff. If you look at his value right after that video surfaced back in April, it kind of went down a cliff. It plummeted. He was right around wide receiver number 23, somewhere in that range, right before the stupid speeding incident in video. So, Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice, coin flip, right? Not really. Rashee Rice is a very good player. And, last year it took him a little while, but he really came on hot at the end of the year. You look at the final, after their bye was in week 10. Coming back, they were against Philadelphia, who was still a decent team at that point. I think that's roughly the game that they started their negative trend, where they kind of imploded on themselves. Had 5 targets in that game. Not an amazing fantasy outlook. And before that game, the highest target number he had was 7. A lot of 6s, or a lot of 5s, 1 6, a couple 4s, a couple 3s. Goes to Philly, 5 targets in that game. After that game, to finish out the season, 10, 9, 10, 9, 12, 6 targets for 127 yards in that last game against Cincinnati. He could have gotten more, but they blew him out a little bit in that one. In that stretch after the bye, he had 3 touchdowns as well. A lot of yards. Most of his work on the whole season was done after the bye. Finishes the wide receiver number 27 last year, and the guy was a shooting star, right? He was going to the moon. He was Dogecoin going to the moon, and had this offseason stuff. Punched the photographer. That all got settled. The only thing that's still unsettled is whether or not the NFL is going to suspend him for the whole street racing thing. I do think something's going to come down. It's probably going to be 3 games, 4 games, if I had to guess. So you have to take that into account with Rashee Rice. But he was a second round, third round pick last year, and he's got 1 year in. They've got 3 more years, including this year. So they're going to have him for 2 more seasons. Why would you ever take Xavier Worthy over the guy that we know can be the target hog in PPR leagues, right? Maybe Xavier Worthy can get those bombs, but he's not Tyreek Hill. That's where I think the mistake is kind of being made. Xavier Worthy is not Deshaun Jackson. He's not Tyreek Hill. You're going to see a lot of those comparisons because he's so fast, but he does not have the same change of direction, quickness that those guys kind of do. And I think that's where the mistake is being made. So if I'm investing in one of these guys, it's going to be Rashee Rice every single day of the week. And at the value that you're getting him at right now, I think it's just too hard to pass up. 201, 202, like again, even with a 4-game suspension, that's 1 season of 4 games. And you can say, oh, well, what he did was terrible. I get it, man. I really do. But look at what Deshaun Watson did, right? He got a 6-game suspension or 8-game suspension from the NFL. It was nothing in the grand scheme of things. It was nothing compared to what people wanted him to never play another down in the NFL. Gets 8 games, 6 games. It's just the NFL is never as strict as they do not play the police as much as people want them to on most cases. Now, sometimes they drop the hammer on like really random situations that you're like, what, why? But like Calvin Ridley got banned for an entire year, right? For betting on his own team to win in a game for like $50 or $1,500 or whatever it was. It was a stupid thing. I get it. I understand that, but he bet on his own team to win. Who cares? Like, I don't, like, I understand it. You want to set the precedent. No gambling in the NFL is okay, but a whole season was kind of dumb. It was overkill, right? But for the most part, most of these things that you're like, oh, this should be overkill. The NFL does not do that. So Rashee Rice is probably going to miss 4 games. At worst, he's going to miss 6. He'll appeal it down to like 4 probably in that case as well. So Rashee Rice, you're going to have him for most of the season and the next 2 years minimum. Maybe they re-sign him because he has shown that he has that potential. The team is moving forward with him all offseason long, getting him more revved up to speed this offseason with Patrick Mahomes and, letting him grow in year 2 as a wide receiver. I'm investing in Rashee Rice every single day of the week. Now, Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. This might surprise people, and I'm not trying to be hot takey here, but I would rather have Hollywood Brown for a late 2nd round pick. He's going in the same range as Christian Watson, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson. Those are some similar valued wide receivers. Or the 208, Tony Pollard, some of these picks. And like Tony Pollard is extremely undervalued personally, but conversation for another time. Late 2nd on Hollywood Brown. You're going to say, but that's crazy. Hollywood Brown has been very mediocre in Arizona last year, right? Like, you look at what he was able to do last year. Well, he only played a couple of games. He played 3 games with Kyler Murray when he came back from his ACL tear last year. 4 targets, 5 targets, 12 targets. You have to remember, it's not Cliff Kingsbury offense last year. It was a whole new guy, and I don't remember the OC for the Arizona Cardinals off the top of my head, but Kyler was learning a new system. He was getting in the same page as Hollywood Brown when he came back. The team was not really super competitive, so there was only a 3-game overlap there, and you don't really get to take a lot away from that. So I kind of go back to the last year in 2022 with Arizona, where it was a full Cliff Kingsbury offense. It was mostly a Kyler Murray. I think that year Kyler Murray went out in the back half, but Hollywood Brown did most of his damage in the first few games with Kyler Murray anyway in that season. Regardless, if you were to take that whole season, even the games that he played without Kyler Murray in there, in 2022, he was on pace for 100 catches for 1,000 yards and about 5-6 touchdowns, which isn't amazing, but it is top 24, top 30 wide receiver. he's being valued right now as the wide receiver number 46, and he got a quarterback upgrade, a system upgrade. I think that they have a role for Hollywood Brown where, maybe Xavier Worthy is a very similar player to Hollywood Brown, but I think Hollywood Brown's change of direction again is much better than Xavier Worthy. So I would be investing in Hollywood Brown. He took a team-friendly deal as well on a 1-year contract to really try and prove himself this year. He's only 27 years old. He wants to get a big payday, similar to Calvin Ridley or, some of these other guys that take these 1-year deals where if he can go out there with Patrick Mahomes and let's say he gets 1,100, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, let's say around 110 targets or completions, receptions, all of a sudden next year he's going to be able to get a 3-year deal for $60 million or something along those lines where he's setting himself up for the future where he can make a ton of money down the road. And maybe KC brings him back. So I do think that I'd rather have Hollywood Brown than Xavier Worthy. And when you go to Xavier Worthy, again, he's wide receiver number 24. He's estimated as the 109, same as Isaiah Pacheco and Travis Kelce. And I don't know what his role is going to be in this offense. Similar valued wide receivers as a whole to Xavier Worthy right now. George Pickens. The upside on George Pickens is insane compared to Xavier Worthy. And I'm going to get a lot of hate for my Xavier Worthy take here, but Jackson Smith-Njigba is going behind Xavier Worthy. Tank Dell is going behind Xavier Worthy. And I would rather have both of those guys much, much more, like not even close to what I'd rather have between Xavier Worthy and JSN or Tank Dell. I do believe that there's still a lot of value there in those two guys. We saw it with Tank Dell. I don't know what we're doing here. The proven talent versus the unproven in Xavier Worthy just because he's fast. So good player, Xavier Worthy. I don't know what he's going to be able to do at an NFL level yet. We have never seen any of this other than he's fast. And that's a good skill set to have. Don't get me wrong, but wide receiver 24, the 110, give me Rashee Rice. You can get Rashee Rice plus for Xavier Worthy right now. And I just would rather have him. You can get Hollywood Brown plus a lot for Xavier Worthy. So I would be doing that every single day of the week, downgrading there from that position. And again, this isn't to be a hater on Xavier Worthy. I do like the talent of this kid, but I do think he's a little bit more of a one-trick pony than people are giving him credit for. They're giving him too much credit for being able to do stuff that's outside of his wheelhouse. And there's a new guard here in Kansas City, and it is all these young wide receivers, and I do think that that's what they want to do long term. And Rashee Rice is going to be here for multiple years. Xavier Worthy, they obviously traded up with the Buffalo Bills to go and get him in the late first of this year's draft class. If they really loved him that much, they would have done a Jameson Williams, not even risked him going before them, right? They would have traded up to 15, 16, something like that. They would have not risked it. So I think that they were just happy to get their guy. They wanted Xavier Worthy, and I do think he's going to fill a role for this team. I don't know if it's going to be a fantasy reliable role where he's going to have week in and week out production. So that's my only thoughts on Xavier Worthy, but I do think there's a new guard coming here in Kansas City. These receivers, man, they're going to be fun for a long, long time. Patrick Mahomes hasn't even hit the prime of his career yet, which is insane. The dude peaks so early. He's going to have many years left of fantasy production, so we're going to see what he can do going forward. And as Travis Kelce starts to age out, they're going to have to find somebody else to replace him as the number one guy for this team. And I think that's where Rashee Rice steps up very nicely. And then you also have these other wide receivers as well. So let me know your thoughts, who I'm right on, who I'm wrong on, down in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter at TDC_Calvin or at FF After Dark. And again, apologies for last week. My internet is hopefully back and running and will be good, even regardless of the holiday this upcoming week. But I'm excited. We're into July. We're getting closer and closer. So that said, thank you guys so much for joining me here tonight. Let me know your thoughts. And until next time, have a good night.
And we all got dreams. We all want things. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?